what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed. The light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now. Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series, where we focus on mind, body, spirit, wellness, fitness, and wholeness, and integrating polarity within so that we can access higher states of light and unity consciousness. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, channel, and a host of this podcast series. And I'm here today with Paula Sevestre. She is an author, speaker, messenger, and voice of the challenges and triumphs of the hero's journey. Evolving out of who she used to be and into what she is now divinely guided to do, Paula is reimagining suffering. Using tools she has adapted, she is helping others to create a path to powerful change. She acknowledges the role spirit has played in her transformation and was tasked with inscribing her journey as she awakened to truth. Her 9-year odyssey of entanglement and deceit with the spiritual healer is artfully detailed in her books, The False Healer, a Trilogy. The trilogy brings together Paula's body of work contained in The False Healer, published in 2020, Heaven's Weight, published in 2014, and Out from Beneath Your Wings, published in 2016. It is through this storytelling that the wisdom of her journey is revealed. Paula is Mi'kmaq. Did I say that?
Mi'kmaq.
Mi'kmaq. Her past work as a consultant involved research and writing, and she resides in Ontario, Canada, with her husband and twin sons. And so a warm welcome to you, Paula. I'm so glad you're joining me.
Thank you very much, Marie, and I'm just so happy to be here. And I just want to thank you for all the wonderful work you've done. I know when we touched base a year ago, um, we connected in a way I had never felt before with another individual. And you actually did a soul reading for me, and it just really brought into my beingness what it was I was here to do. I knew, but you put into words what it was. And that was to share wholeness medicine. And I live that each and every day. And I thank you.
You're so welcome. And it's such a rich, like a full experience when we really see each other, right? And I think that's what the soul readings really do for people is they feel so seen. They
Yeah.
feel so honored for the gifts that we are and what we bring to this world. And it's been part of our 3D experience in this realm to obviously journey the hero's journey and going through the experiences of separation consciousness where we've more or less kind of forgotten who we are, or we've been conditioned to forget who we are.
Yes.
And the hero's journey is the process of remembering who we are.
Yeah.
And the soul readings and many of the tools that we all use, but the soul reading specifically, it's like the guides give us this vibrational soul scroll. It's like an activation of remembering, and it's energetic even more than it's the words. It's the frequencies in there.
It is.
Um, that we, and it's like a song. It's like a song that I could say, oh, I
Yes.
remember who I am. And it can almost make me cry,
Yeah.
because I felt that, the soul readings I do now for people, it's what the guides did for me in my hero's journey. And when I went through my dark night of the soul, they were bringing through these messages, even though I was in the deepest places of despair,
Yes.
they were showing me my greatest light. And it was, what an experience of duality that actually was beautiful, even though I was also in deep pain.
Yes, yeah.
And I think you know a lot about that, I'd love, there's so many things I want to talk about with you today, but I wanted to just give you an opportunity to share first a little bit about your journey, your journey to remember, as a child growing up, and then which led you to your spiritual seeking, which led to the experiences that I think you've written about in some of your books.
Yes, thank you. I will. I just wanted to say quickly, I love the word separation pops that you use. I think that's quite fitting for how we feel. We all catch separation pops because we really are separated from who we truly are, and we must experience that in order to come to wholeness. So I
Yes.
love that in my reading, and it's something that just so brilliantly described. Getting to my background, my childhood, as I said, I'm Mi'kmaq. We used to be called Micmac a long time ago until we went back to the old way of saying it, Mi'kmaq. And we're located on the east coast of Canada, where our nation is there. We have quite a big nation. It includes 4 provinces. So we are the first peoples. We would have been the first peoples that made contact with the colonial Britain or the UK, and even earlier than that, we it's known that we made contact with. I've just been watching Oak Island, and I guess there had been many instances where there was earlier contact, but there was contact earlier than 1400,
Wow.
than we had thought. So that is interesting, and we're moving forward on looking at how that plays into our future now. And because it's new and we're discovering all this, and
Right.
it opens the door to many other aspects we hadn't considered. But I grew up on a reserve, and a reserve here is similar to a reservation in the United States. So we have over 600 reserves in Canada. I currently live with my husband, who's Mohawk, on one of the biggest reserves in Canada. It's called Six Nations of the Grand River, but my reserve is called Member 2 First Nation. And I'm very proud to be a part of that community, and we're striving to move forward each and every day, and advancing in ways we never thought possible when I was a child. When I was a child, it was a very small community, very poor. We were sort of hidden away. We were moved away from the water where we had our community so that we wouldn't be seen by the people within the city. We were considered um, sort of dirty in a way, and ill-educated and so forth. So they moved us into the trees, but which today is one of the most beautiful spots you will ever see. And we overlook this town and the city, and we've moved up so much economically that we employ many of the people in the city where I grew up. So things had shifted that much from when I was a little girl to now. And actually, we just recently purchased a big fishery called Clearwater Fishery, and they held a lot of the licenses for a lot of the Canadian lobster and crab that you would receive in restaurants and so forth. So we purchased that, the Mi'kmaq Nation, along with a company in BC. So that has just opened the doors to growth that we, as I said, we never could have imagined. So I'm very proud of that, and proud of our people for advancing in the way that they have. But when I was growing up, obviously things weren't the greatest. There was a lot of alcoholism in our community and within my family, and my parents were both alcoholics. They were very loving people, but when they drank, things would turn violent, and they never turned to violence onto us. It was just each other, towards each other, that they did that. But it really affected us long term. That that feeling of fear of waking up in the middle of the night and knowing that a fight was going to happen, that we would have to run and try to get the police and call. And so that's affected me in big ways as I was growing up. And fortunately, my mom did quit drinking when I was a teenager. So I had a little time to be normal, to live a somewhat of a normal life where I didn't go to bed scared that we would have to break up a fight in the middle of the night. And and then my brother had passed away when I was 15. He was 16, quite suddenly. He had cancer, and so that too, played a big role in how I developed. And but in the long term, his passing created within our family this bond that cannot be broken. I have eight brothers and sisters, and when we lost one, our brother Bradley, that was enough for us to say, it will never happen. We will never be separated um, again. As like, Brad wasn't separated from us. He became part of us. And
Yes.
that's what I discovered later in life, is that when we lose the physical presence of our loved one, they're not really gone. They sort of explode into this, all of their parts of them, that is their spirit, all go into each and every one of us. And they stay within our DNA until we pass. And then we explode and go into the DNA of the loved ones we have. So we're continually carrying our ancestors with us, with all those explosions. And that is how they're able to communicate with us so clearly, is that they have integrated with us. Their spirit has integrated with us. And that is how we remember, and as where we get the feelings of our ancestors. Like one morning, I'm not sure what you do when you're feeling a little low, but I dance. I love to dance, and I'll just dance all over and do some Latin dance. I'm just connected to Latin music like Santana and Gypsy Kings. But there are some mornings when I just need an ancestral
Mm.
connection. And I'll put on some of my indigenous tunes and just dance and dance and dance. And it doesn't matter how I dance, what I dance, but I am dancing to that rhythm. And, I go outside on my deck and I'll dance around on the deck. And fortunately, it's a little hidden, so people can't see me. But that is our connection. And that is how I learned. That is how I learned how to live with the loss of our loved ones, and how to be joyful that I am now. They are with me in a way I never thought possible. And as I had to grow, of course, so I left my community. I moved to Ontario. Lived in Ontario for quite some time, for about 9 years. Toronto, Canada. It's one of the biggest cities in Canada. And, I had my challenges in Toronto as, not really. I grew up on the reserve. There wasn't a lot of city things that I knew. And I remember earlier on, like even being a teenager and going out to dinner and not ever having a salad before. I had never had a salad. And I didn't know really what to order with a salad or how it would taste. We had vegetables, we just didn't have it in salad form. And I remember this lady saying to me, "Would you mind mixing up the salad?" I was a guest at a home for dinner, and I honestly didn't know how to put together a salad. So I just pretended that I did, and cut the lettuce and so forth. But it's little things like that when you go into a big city like Toronto. And I remember one of my friends saying to me, "You eat white bread?" I was like, "Well, what other bread is there to eat?" I was into some problems there, living there, and that's in my book, Out from Beneath Your Wings. You know, unfortunately, there were some instances where I ended up homeless. I just couldn't seem to get that responsibility thing going. You know, I would go out partying rather than consider paying the rent, you know, that type of things. And even though I always had work, I would end up in these situations that were not the greatest. So, you know, all of that is tied into what how we're meant to grow and what we're meant to experience. And I selected that as my experience. You know, before I came here. And I say to myself, you know, my poor mother, I was born so quickly, you know, she had a very short labor with me. And I said, I was just anxious to get out of there and start, you know, I have a lot to get through. I got to start. You know? And it did, you know, it started. It was one thing after another after another. And I laugh at it now because it is funny to me, a lot of the things that happened. But when I was growing up, it of course wasn't. And so then after living not for a while, I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while and was a flight attendant and flew around the Middle East. And that was a lot of fun. And of course, you know, I have stories from there because, you know, I was who I was. And didn't often follow the rules, but I didn't get into a lot of trouble. But you know, it was enough to you know, the rose-colored glasses were taken off, and I actually saw what it was really like in Saudi Arabia. But it was also beautiful, so you sort of have to balance it. And then you know, I married at 30 and had my children, my twin sons, at 39. And you know, they're graduating high school now. They're in grade 12. And I met the healer when I was 46, so 10 years ago now. And it changed my life. It literally stopped me in my tracks. And prior to meeting the healer, I had lots of dreams. You know, I would get these dreams that weren't quite dreams, but I didn't know how to describe them at the time. And I would get, even when I lived in Toronto, I would get messages and of where not to go. You know, Paula, you must leave here. You know, you can't stay here, or things of that nature.
Mhm.
Being guided, I just didn't know it was guidance. I didn't
Right,
know.
I was gonna say I felt guidance. The
Yeah,
guidance was coming through.
it was, and I didn't know I didn't truly know how to tap into it other than when it happened. I didn't, like, there was no way that I could figure out how to connect with it.
Mhm.
It just connected with me. It wasn't a two-way street.
Right.
Yeah, so when I met the healer, I was at the right age to meet the healer
Mhm.
and at the right time in my life. And the reason I say that is because I study numerology. And with numerology, I knew when I went back to look at my chart and look at my, it's called a pyramid, where um, we have areas, there's a 27-year period in our lifetime where we experience the most growth. And there is a reason for that growth. And the reason for that I met the healer at the time when I was 46 was because I was on the third level of the pyramid, and I needed to reach the top, which was the fourth pyramid. And in that time, I needed to become a teacher. So
Mm.
how was I going to get from being regular Paula, working on contracts, doing what I did, traveling a lot, having, like, working with my children? How was I going to go from being that Paula to being teacher Paula?
Right.
And it was through this experience with the spiritual healer that brought me into the dark night of the soul.
Mm.
And it was a 9-month experience with him. I was sexually assaulted during that time. I was emotionally damaged. I spiritually was, I spiritually gave up, I think, in that time. And I was not who I was. The confidence I once had before I went into that was entirely gone. My husband didn't even recognize the person I became because I was damaged. So within, fortunately, after 9 months, and the reason I stayed with the healer that long, 9 months, was that I made a promise at the beginning. He made me promise that I would do this, but the promise wasn't to him. The promise was to the Creator. So as I knew what promise I made, and I would not pull away because of what I was experiencing. I held on because of that promise. And it at the ninth month, I knew I could no longer stay. I couldn't continue the year long. It was supposed to be a year long healing healing sessions, and I couldn't stay because if I stayed, there was no coming back. I knew I would not make it, and I would become a person that was probably like him because that's what he was training me to do. He was training me on medicine, and he wanted to show me first the bad medicine. So I knew that that was not for me, and it took a lot, and I had to show a lot of courage at that time because I was scared. I was very scared he was going to, because he said he could use medicine on me that would keep me there. And and if I didn't walk away, I probably would not be here today, Marie, because that's how damaging it was to my my mental state. So so when I got through all of that, I one day I was driving into school, we're going to pick up the kids, and I just said to the universe, why? Why did I have to go through that? Like, what was the purpose of this? There doesn't seem to be any purpose to what happened.
Mhm.
And I turned and I went to the library, the city library. And as I went to the library, I was guided to an area, and all I did was run my hands along the books in the spiritual section. And the three books that I selected turned out they were all the same color. And as I studied and as I read, every time I went back to the library, again there would be three, four books, and I would go through these in 5 days max, and there'd be another three, four books of different colors. So as I was going through, I was beginning to understand that that I was beginning to understand the dark night of the soul and why I had to go through this.
Mhm.
And it was during this time that I stepped into a book written by Dr. David Phillips, and it was a book on self-discovery, numerology, and it can it connected. It was one of those things, aha moments that was that really put things into perspective for me. I could see from a higher perspective the reason for the experiences that I had throughout my life, including with the false healer. And to this day, I continue to use numerology because I think it's important for people to look at their charts and to see what they're here to experience. And I'm a ruling number 8, and I don't know if you're familiar. You are
Yeah.
familiar, I know, with the infinity symbol.
Yes.
So the ruling number 8, the number 8, it doesn't lie down. it's up. And when it's up, it creates highs and lows.
Mm.
So, as my ruling number, I'm going through life in all these highs and lows because I couldn't balance to,
Mm.
I couldn't balance it. So I would be, I would have money. Like when I lived in Toronto, I would have money and get paid. And this one time I ran into, I knew I had to get a place to rent. And I ran into a friend of mine, and I knew some very wealthy people there, but I never told them what was happening to me. I always kept it secret because I was always ashamed of who I was and what I couldn't afford. And, just things I was embarrassed of me. And even though they loved me, I was embarrassed of me. And, I ran into her one day, and one evening, she says, Paul, I'm having a party, a gathering. Why don't you come over? I said, sure. I said, and I'll bring the lobster. So I had the money I should have paid for the rent. And I spent it on the lobster because I didn't realize it would be that expensive. Yeah. So I took the lobster over to her place, and we had a wonderful time. It was fun day, and it was time to leave. And if I had just said to her, I don't have a place to stay, she would have lovingly lived. She had this beautiful house. She lived alone, and she would have invited me to stay. But no, I waved goodbye, and got on the subway, and I had no place to go. So I ended up going back to my office where I worked, and I slept under my desk for the night. So that's the ups and downs of that eight. Yahoo, I got lobster to, oh no, I'm under the desk. you know,
Wow.
so I had to learn how to balance that and how to bring it to a horizontal state where the flow is easier, it's steady, it is just me, it's peaceful. And that is what my life, what I had to do. And I had some within my chart, I had the arrow of determination, and I had the arrow of the will. So I had these characteristics that really helped me and assisted me when I was able to use them correctly. Because the whole point of the ruling number eight is to gain wisdom, and you gain wisdom through experiences. So when you're not living your best life with that eight and not gaining wisdom or understanding the wisdom of your experiences, you begin to manipulate.
Mm.
That's the underbelly of the eight, is manipulation. And that's easy to do. And I did study public relations, and I couldn't even continue with public relations because it was not me. Once I started to change, I could no longer fudge the truth. I couldn't spin anything. I needed to be who I am authentically. And I needed to look into the eye of whomever I was speaking with and know that I was speaking truth to them.
Mm.
And so, as I was saying, that's how you evolve. And when you understand your numbers, um, that is that helps you take steps to to learn more, to open the door to awakening. And when the 27-year period starts, you need, the way you get it is you find your ruling number, and then you decrease whatever your ruling number is minus an 8. You minus it from 36 to number 36, and you get 28. So when I hit um, my first pyramid at 28, that is when I moved home from Toronto to Nova Scotia. I moved back from Toronto because I knew I couldn't stay in Toronto because if I was homeless off and on, I needed to heal from all of that. And I went home. So, and then I went home, And in that time, I healed and met my husband.
Mm.
So I couldn't meet him if I was the person that I was in Toronto. I needed to at least be a little more secure. And because he's just that type of person that would have, he wouldn't have seen me. We wouldn't have connected because it wouldn't have worked out. So then the next, so you can add 9 years onto that 28. It takes me to 37. 37 was when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is when I decided at that moment I wanted to be pregnant. Yeah, I had never thought I wanted children up until that time, and because I knew I needed help. So I had to go through in vitro fertilization for a period. I was fortunate on the first attempt, and I had my children just when I was turning 39. So then you add 9 years onto that, and that is when I met the healer. And then you add 9 years onto that, and that is when the trial of the healer um, finished, wrapped up, and he was convicted. And I would start my journey of teaching thereafter. So, and all of these cycles have 1 to 9 years within them. So each of them are at times to learn different things. My first cycle was a number 6, and it was imperative for me in that number 6 to learn to learn throughout that time that the creativity I had was not mine alone. It was creativity of the creator and how we were exchanging and how I was expressing. But I didn't learn that then. The other side of a 6 is when you will focus on marriage, you will focus on family, you will focus on the house. I was always decorating my house, because I couldn't yet express the creativity of the creator. I didn't understand it. So that's how you sort of learn when you look at your chart. And when people have a 9 in their charts, often that's a time when they will do service,
Mm.
whether they run for counselor, like in our communities, or they run for city council, or they do humanitarian work. It's driving them to do what they need to do. So there's all kinds of things that you can get from numerology that I just love, and I love sharing it. And I think, and it really opens up people, and we have a great laugh in the workshops because they're all comparing notes. What do I have? What's your number? What's higher? And it's fantastic, and I love it. And I wish, I'll show you the book. This is the book.
Yes.
People want to buy it by David A. Phillips. It's numerology, and you can get it from. You have to order it because Dr. Phillips died, and Hay House, I think, now publishes it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think it's truly, if you're really interested in it, it's truly a fantastic read. And I refer to this all the time because it breaks down everything, and it's amazing what it can tell you about yourself. Yeah, he did wonderful work. I can't say it enough. He did fantastic work in inscribing his journey of learning numbers. It's fantastic.
It is. And I think you used the words, I don't know if it was subtitled, I didn't catch it on the cover, but it is a process of self-discovery,
Yes, it is, and
right?
you did catch it. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
And you can feel that. And I've never been somebody who studied it, but I have this attraction. So maybe it's in one of my pyramids. That's what, right? One of the things that I'm going to be exploring. And I think I bought like some online classes, you know how people do, and I never get there. I don't know what that is, but it must just hasn't been time. But when
yeah,
I hear you talking about that book, I can feel a vibrational resonance in a different way. That self-discovery, that hero's journey, that energy of
yes.
that speaks to my soul. So I, for one, will be checking out that book. And I want to thank you for sharing. There's so many pieces, obviously, in all of our journeys, and any of our listeners, like, Numerology gives us a lens even to go back and understand some of the chapters of our lives, right? Some of those cycles that we've gone through and put it in a bigger context. One of the things that helps me as an intuitive is that bigger picture perspective, that aerial view, right?
Yes.
And otherwise, when I have that aerial view, it helps us be a creator, it helps us be a responder. And when I'm not seeing from that bigger picture perspective, I'm just a human being that's, reacting to everything, right?
Yes.
Right. And so when you talk about your eight and the strengths of that and the challenges of that or the underbellies of that, it is so amazing. But when you understand the language, and I would also say numerology gives us a language. It gives us a language to understand our journeys here, that they're more than random events.
Yes.
Everything is with divine precision. But there are points in it, like when you were journeying around and surfing the waves of life. What I felt when you talked about going to Toronto, I felt like you were a turtle without her shell. You right? And a turtle carries its home on its back, and
Yeah.
you went like a naked turtle to
Yeah,
right?
did.
You know? And no wonder you had all the experiences that you had, which was so a part of that chapter, that cycle, that pyramid. It was part of your learning to gain the wisdom and then you had to come home and meet your husband and create a home and bringing in these larger lessons, right? And
Yes.
I don't know if I'd say the word earn your way into the wisdom, but we do, is wisdom applied knowledge. Like, you don't just, somebody can't just give it to you. Nobody can just like, here's the book of knowledge, go be that. No,
Yeah.
we have all these experiences that make us, give us this wisdom, and we can share our stories, because that's where the wisdom is. It's in
Yeah.
our stories, which is what Joseph Campbell, that there's that thread. That's what he knew, is in the mythology. It's all of us. Like, we all take these heroes journeys. We are all these epic heroes that we read about and we watch movies about, but we have to have our own hero's journey, which means we stumble and we fall and we get lost and we forget who we are, and we suffer. We
Yes.
can suffer in the journey, and we can go into these places of despair and the dark night of the soul. And I think that some people, not all, but some people, I think, definitely find me in my work. And I think they find you in your work, because we understand the gifts of suffering now, because
Yes.
we've been through those deep places, and we can reflect that to people, that they are the gifts of suffering. There's a song I think I referenced in one of my other videos in the last couple of months, that I found when I was struggling, or I was just coming out of it, but boy, it brought tears. Like, my whole body
Yeah.
felt that song. But the gifts the storm may bring is the
Mhm.
song, right? And I so connected, right? Because these storms do come into our lives. And
Yes.
when we can be battered and bruised by the storms and almost feel like, I definitely had the experience, and you at that ninth month in that healer, the false healer's tutelage, we can feel our ember is going out, the light is going out inside.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then there's something that happens. This, I don't know, this soul strength comes out of nowhere, this celestial energy inside us that is like, this isn't it. This isn't your path, right? It's not over. And for me, and it was different for you, but for me, that was the color, the magic. That was the message the guides were saying when I was like, I could barely breathe in my own life. And the guides were saying, they just started like that guidance. Kept hearing this message, color the magic again, and I can barely get out of bed. I can barely function. And they're telling me to color the magic. I didn't even know what that meant, but it kept coming. It reminds me, I'm somebody who pulls from movies, because I think that's the hero's journey, right? It's somebody else's journey. But
Yes.
did you ever see the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and
Yes.
Patrick Swayze?
Yes.
and he comes as a ghost, right? And he thinks that nobody in human life can actually hear him because he's passed over, and he's talking, and he totally thinks that she's a bunch of crackery, right? As this like shamanic, I don't know, a channel basically, but she was pretty much a fraud at that point. She hears him and he says, "Oh, give me a break." He's listening to her do all these fake healing sessions, and but I remember once he realized she could hear him, he's just talking and he starts singing like I'm Henry VIII I am. And he's like, until she'll listen to him because he wants her to do something for him because she's still in the
Right.
physical realm. And it's almost like the guides were doing that with me. They just kept saying it almost like it became a mantra. First, it was like a gnat in my field, this mosquito. I was like, what does that mean? Right? I don't have any energy for that, whatever that is. And then
Yes.
over time, I was like, color the magic again. What does that mean? And in asking that, I was summoning the answers. What does color the magic? I don't know what that means. And finally, I was like, oh, and I started creating designs. That's the first thing I started writing down some of their guidances and putting them on bumper stickers in a store at Cafe Press. And then I started literally getting downloads of books to write and to illustrate, and literally using colored pencils, coloring the magic.
Yes.
But that's all a part of the journey. Like mine was color the magic. It's when our embers going out that we are often the most open. We're
Mhm.
so raw. We've given up, like we've surrendered anything, we're in a place of lostness, but we're in our place of the most open.
Yes.
And I think that's when magic happens. And when you can work with a healer, that's the other thing I felt. If I saw the naked turtle when I heard you talking about your journey, I also felt it was because of the false healer that a true healer was activated.
Oh,
Be-
how wonderful.
Because you listened, even in that space, and it shows us our soul strength. We can be beaten and battered and bruised, and that brings up another point. Growing our discernment in these journeys, because a lot of people seek out spiritual teachers and healers, and they want a session for this, or they want to know what somebody sees in their energy field. And I would say to our listeners, you learn. I have had a similar experience to yours in a way. I became my own channel with my own guides, but at a certain point I was curious about what other people would see, and I was very discerning. I've only had like 3 readings with people other than myself.
Yes.
But the second one nearly destroyed me.
Oh.
Nearly destroyed me. Just different than you, but like you in the same vibrational way. And
Mhm.
for me, my experience, I think there are false healers out there that have a great deal of ego, and they have a tremendous amount of darkness. And some of them are wielding dark power on purpose. It's
Yes.
very conscious for them. And they're taking the light, they're almost vampiring off of our light by destroying us. And I
Mhm.
think that's why we feel our life force leaving in what they're doing. Um, and it took me months to recover from that. And I was awake and I was a channel at that point. I had already published some of my books at that point. And
Wow.
I was very alive and awake, and I was vibrant in my world. And it was somebody connected and offering channeled guidance to connect with Lemuria.
Oh,
And
yes.
that was the buzzword for me.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, this is somebody who is inviting people to re-experience Lemuria. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, and I had waited for a long time, and I thought, this is the one, this is who's for me. And you go through these experiences, and that's when we bring up discernment. I have grown discernment because I went on that journey with that false healer, right?
Mhm.
and
Yes.
and and it activated, it almost broke me again. This was a second catalyzing experience, almost destroying my light again.
Yes.
But it's like, we come back. If we can tap into that ember of source inside us, we come back even stronger. And
Yes.
so it happens time and time again in the hero's journeys. You see it in Harry Potter, you see it in Star Wars, you see it in so many of these, all the stories that we love and the movies we see, because that's us.
It is.
we are the Harry Potters of our lives. There are Voldemorts out there,
Yeah.
that are trying to destroy us and take over the world. Waha. Kind of this.
Yeah.
And has many faces. And
Yes.
for me, the false healer hid behind Lemuria, which was a very, very dark trick, and I think is still practicing
Mhm.
today. And so, and after that experience, for me personally, I knew my job was to get out there and be, a bright light in the world, and to heal with my presence, and to teach people about discernment, and to share messages that empower people. I didn't, I know that that person is going to meet her karma in her own ways, and that's the way the universe works. But in your journey, it was also part of telling the story. That's what these three books were, right? Is
Yes.
um, languaging that for other people, that it happened to them and they didn't have the words for it. You're giving language to the false healer to almost, in a way, diffuse its power and empower people coming through those experiences, which is part of, I would guess, is reimagining suffering for you.
Yes.
It's a part of that, right?
It is, yes. And I give a description in my book about what a real healer is, and how the false healer wasn't a healer, because a real healer will work with you. A healer doesn't take over, and you have to follow everything that that person does. They will connect with you because they're giving you the strength. They're using their knowledge to give you the strength to heal yourself. And he wasn't doing that. He
No.
was taking mine and using it for himself. And um, I didn't go to the healer either. I didn't seek out the healer. He sought me out because
Wow.
I knew someone very connected to him who knew a lot about me. And
Mm.
he knew from that information how to manipulate me.
Wow.
So, if I thought if I had gone to him willingly, pat me on the bottom for doing that, but I didn't. They sought me out, literally sought me out to do that, and I just, I thought he was an indigenous spiritual healer. I thought he was a shaman. I had never, I didn't know a lot about that side of my culture because we didn't practice indigenous traditional healing in my community.
Mm.
So I just thought that this was an opportunity for me to learn, and I learned, but not a good way,
Not the way you
not
thought.
the way I thought I would. Yeah, and and so sitting in court as I was testifying and looking at him, I thought to myself, I had grown so much. I thought, how could I have fallen for this? Look at him, and because he had no longer the strength of other people, he hadn't been able to do his dirty deeds for, I think, 3 years before we got to that day in court where
Wow.
I testified against him. So his strength was dwindling and dwindling and dwindling because
Right.
he no longer had people he could draw from.
Right. The vampiring. He just
Yes,
didn't have the sustenance of the life
yes,
force he required to do the work he did.
exactly. Yeah. So he did go to federal prison, and he did. He met his karmic circle came in for him,
Yes.
and but today, the person I am today, I don't wish him ill. I don't wish him destruction or anything. I pray for him as I would pray for anyone else, because I know what it takes to heal. I know what it takes, what we need to do to heal ourselves. And I know why he's here. I know his I know what he had to experience himself. and getting through this life, and why he was here, and how is he going to turn it around for himself.
Yes.
That's what's interesting to me, is how is he going to turn it around for himself, so when he steps out of this lifetime into the great beyond, that he will step over it in joy, and
Wow.
not in fear. So, because we don't need any more fear in our lives, we don't need any more fear entering our universe or entering anywhere around us. And and so that's why I truly pray that he will find his way, and that he will find his way to healing. And maybe somebody else is helping him right now to
Yes.
look at what he's done, to look at his life and what led him to make the choices that he did. Because he is gifted, and he
Yes.
does have abilities and sight, and but he chose to not follow that guidance, that
Right.
light. He chose his own his own. He wanted what he wanted when he wanted it.
In the
So
in the duality game, darkness is power.
yes,
And it can be very attractive. Obviously, look at our world and you can see all around us that there's evidence of the attractor factor
yes,
of those slippery slope of those kinds of decisions and acquiring power. And that disempowerment that people have comes from a separation from source inside us. And we
yes,
can either get that from light sources or we can get that from sources of darkness. And we're all trying to fill what we feel is a void inside us because we disconnected in this realm. And then that's the evidence we see in many ways around us. And some of us journey in these karmic cycles reaching for darkness for the power that we feel
mm,
like we're lacking. But we
yes,
know that also this realm is an illusion, and that when all of us from the experiences we have, you had your experience of the suffering in that experience that has actually birthed a more empowered, balanced you now,
yes,
right?
yes,
And he also was invited to the dance of reconciling duality. And this is, I guess you would say, I guess in the language of numerology, then, is that one of his pyramids? That was one of his cycles that he's had, a karmic cycle
yes,
and a growth cycle that he played around with this darkness, but there's new cycles. The
yes.
amazing thing is we can make different choices, and then the energy of alchemy comes in and transformation.
Mhm.
And the hero's journey goes on that, and some of our arcs are longer than others, right?
Yeah.
Some of us have quick cycles and some of us have much longer cycles, but we all get there.
Yes,
We
we do.
all get there.
Yeah. And one of the things about the hero's journey is, as I mentioned, I do cover 9 elements in my book of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And the third one is that call to adventure, and I label my call to adventure as, the when I made the decision, because the book that I wrote in 2014 was the was what helped convict the false healer, because I had written specific things in there, and I at the time had no idea that was going to be used in a trial years later. All I knew was that I had the urgency to write this book. I was in meditation, and I got that energetic hit. I when it came out of the room, and I said to my husband, "I'm going to write a book." And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to write a book." I said, "It's about my life. That's all I know, and I have 2 weeks to do it." Yeah. So when I wrote the book, I got this energetic hit, and I had I had to decide at the time how I would start the book, and and of course, you know what it's like when you start to write. Things are just given to you when you're in that state, and I was in that that energetic buzz. It's like your whole body is just vibrating, and it's saying, start, start, start. You have to start right now. And I did. And I didn't know that this would play such a role years later. And I had, as I I worked through the urgency of writing this book and then publishing it within 6 weeks, it was all in total 6 weeks. I couldn't believe how much you can do
Mm.
with with energy.
Right.
And I know that you there are many people out there that will understand this, because it's like you're a lightning pole and you're walking around buzzing all the time, and that's all I did during this period was buzz as I wrote, as I wrote. And little did I know it would be significant later on. And I think that's how I wrote all of my books, was the same way. You get hit with that energy, and you just take action. And if you don't take action, like you said, it will continue. I almost feel sometimes like my crown is going to pulse inward so hard. you know, it's saying, do it, take action now, take action. And I'm trying
It's
to
that
say,
pulse of
I
creation. You
know.
can't deny it. It's a pulse of
No,
creation.
you can't. And it's like you're walking around like this, until you get done what you need to get done. And I think for people who think they'll never feel that way, when it begins to happen to you, this it's like this this hit that you constantly desire, that connection. And the more, the more you connect by meditating, the more you connect by expanding your knowledge, expanding, it truly fills you in ways you could never imagine. And it gives you, like I'm feeling right now, just this, I can't even feel like I'm going to push out of my body, because it's so much energy that I want to send to everyone out there, and to you, and to whoever's listening. And that is what we bring to the table. That is what our experiences have taken us on, the journey that now we're able to do this, and the light is just pushing out of us.
It is.
You can't stop it.
And you can't. And it is this energy of just quantum expansiveness that transcends words. Like there are no words for what that energy coursing through you. But like you, when I heard you say that from start to finish, you wrote it and published it in 6 weeks. It is amazing, because when spirit and creator energy is flowing through you, there is no time. You step outside of linear time, and it's like there's like these magic elves that are creating. You are a magic elf, and there is this, you're working for creator. You're sewing, or you're writing, or you're visioning or dreaming, or whatever it is. And all of my books and everything that I've ever created, when it's been right timing, it's been like that. It's been
Yes.
like in 2 or 3 months the books get written and published, similar. So these, for me, it has not been this like odyssey like journey that it's like 50 years of trying to write a book. No, when it's aligned, it's pouring through you. It is
It,
just absolutely pouring through you.
yes. Yeah. And I just love that, and I feel that. And that's what I that's the most of what I want to share with people, is the ascension process of how we get there, how the steps we take, and the clearing that we do, how it begins to flow through you, and to um, design you into something new, because you're transforming in ways that you had you wouldn't have even it wouldn't have even entered my mind 10 years ago, 11 years ago, what I could express today. And that is what I want for all people, is that flame within them to be ignited. It is there, but it's very dim. You
It
know?
is,
So,
it is
so you
until
need to charge that light, to get it going, get it going, get it going, that it's charged on its own, and you don't ever have to go through a process to charge it. It is just always charged, and it pops
it's
out. And
renewable energy. It's like constantly replenishing itself.
yes,
And I've heard a teacher in particular that I've been listening to this last year talk about the left brain and the right brain. And
yes,
the left brain lives more in the linear world of like, this goal to this goal to this goal, and you have to work hard to achieve those things. That's the left brain that has to
yes.
toil away in a 3D world.
Mhm.
That's where we get that from. But the right brain is where there's so much flow and there's creation. It's the feminine energy. The left brain's the more the masculine energy, and the right brain is the feminine energy. And when the feminine energy leads and it gives instructions to the left brain to implement the guidance, right?
Yes.
Now we're cooking. Like
Yeah.
now we're pulsing that energy. And we've had it reversed. We've been pushing
Yes.
from the left brain and working so hard and squeezing, these accomplishments. But for some of us, it's been just such a arduous journey and it's not very much fun. But when you reverse it and you let the feminine lead, it knows all about expansive energy, and it
Yes.
knows that everything is possible, and it knows like the most efficient, brilliant, fun way to be creating whatever it is that you're here to create.
Yes.
So it is letting that light inside us lead, and then it's almost like I have found in my own transformation process, my own hero's journey, my left brain, my ego, it fights a little bit in the beginning, and then it is so so grateful because it's so tired. It was never designed to guide us. It was always meant to receive instructions from our hearts,
Yes.
right? And when
Yes.
you did that and you let go and you wrote that book in 2 weeks, like that's when it just, and you needed to be that empty vessel. There's something that happens when we're almost gutted in those dark nights of the soul, that
Hmm.
we're making room for God. We're making room for creator source energy to fill us up with what's real instead of all the sludge that's not. And
Yes.
so as our lights grew dimmer in those experiences, it was like maybe the light of the 3D world of what we thought was true is what is dimming out, so that the true replenishment and that renewable energy of the Christ consciousness, or the light consciousness or creator source, it's filling us up. And once you refill with that,
Yes.
it's like the switch has been flipped and you know the truth, right? And you activate in that frequency. And I think your website and yours, is it your spirit name is Light from Creator? As
It
we
is.
close out, can you share about that
Sure.
essence? Yeah.
Well, a few years back, I was at a naming ceremony. I attended the naming ceremony, and I wasn't on the list to get a name. It was because it was mainly youth that were part of this program, and I spoke at an event, and so I hadn't planned on it. And my sister said, "Paula, I'd like, would you like to go through the ceremony?" And I said, "Why not? Yeah, sure." And so, we all had our spot, we all had our time, and I was near the end. It was near the end, and I was called up, and I was with two other people, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. And the lady, the elder who was doing the ceremony, I've known all my life, and so I felt comfortable with her.
Hmm.
And she said, "Paula," she says, when she had her eyes closed, and she says, when she opened her eyes, she saw a beam of light that went from behind her directly into me. And she said, your name is Light from Creator, and your totem is an eagle, and my spirit animal is a deer. So it was, to me, it took me a while to come into union with the name, because I knew what it meant. I was awake, I was awoken then, and I knew what the name meant, and I knew it would be significant later on, but not yet. I wasn't yet prepared to carry the name.
Mm.
It took me almost 4 years to come into union with that name and to reveal it, because it's something that was sacred to me. It was something that I felt was beyond me at the time. But we're all light from Creator. Each and every one of us is light from Creator. So that is why I had started using it as for the work that I'm doing, reimagining suffering. I thought it has to be from the Creator. It is from the Creator, and we all must share that light.
Mm.
So that is my story on light from Creator, and it, to me, it is magical, and it brings me a strength you could never know. It has changed my life in ways that I pray for others to feel even a little bit of what I feel, for the love that is inside of me that I never thought would ever be, would ever exist in the way that it exists in my life today.
It's such a beautiful gift when we can take the journey, accept the journey to embody what is ours, right? And this light from Creator was yours. And it's I think the most powerful message in the world right now is that we are this living light.
Yeah,
We are this creationary energy, and we've just been living in an upside down world, right? Like a turtle that's been trapped on its back, right? There's that turtle energy. But, and turtle is the mother, turtle is creation. And
yeah,
I think that's why turtle keeps inserting. I don't know if I have all these photographs that my kids took. I think I have a turtle somewhere in my studio. I think there is, but turtle is, and turtle was the energy of it was at like the gates of Lemuria. There
yeah,
were these giant sea turtles there, and I think some people have even taken pictures of some ruins under the sea of the lost civilization of Lemuria. But all that's coming back inside us, that the gifts of the mother, the gifts of the feminine, the gifts of flow and water, the gifts of creation, and light from Creator. We're breathing and drinking and embodying more light.
yes,
And some of us, we just have to turn the volume up a little bit, like on those dimmer lights. We've on a dimmer switch and it's been turned way down, right? And we just have to turn it up again. And
yeah,
and people like you and me, we offer that invitation. We have gone through many of these, aspects of the journey, and we're messengers and voices of the gifts of all that brings to us. And then we're meant to all be essentially a candle in the sun. We have the same light inside us.
yes.
And I'm so it's such a gift that people like you, that you wrote these stories, that you have this trilogy. And maybe as we close this out, you do healing sessions with people, do you and workshops? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I don't really refer to them as healing sessions. I haven't yet gotten to the point of identifying myself as a healer. Even though I know that the work that I do is healing, I think coming from the experience that I had, I'm very cautious as to how I define what I do, because I don't want to put out to people who may need counseling, who may need to be with a trained psychologist or psychiatrist or a social worker. I don't want them to miss the opportunity to get that type of help.
Mhm.
So I don't like to refer to myself as a healer in that way. Um, I like to think that I give light and I open the door to awaken. But and that I provide some sense of joy and some sense of happiness when they're with me and around me. But I think it's going to take me a while longer to identify myself as a healer, because I think that comes from the people that I work with, from the people who encounter me. It's like, I think, calling myself a shaman or something like that. That is not something that you yourself identify. It's something that's given to you by your community.
Wow.
And as you were saying about the turtles, we live on Turtle Island.
Oh,
All the nations, we refer to North America as Turtle Island, and it's where our people all were. And my husband is of the Turtle Clan here in
oh,
Mohawk territory, so I have lots of turtles around my house. And it's funny how you sort of just got on turtle, and that's it.
right?
So yeah, so when I do workshops, I haven't done the hero's journey yet because I just wrote the book, and then of course the pandemic hit, and I haven't been able to travel or to do anything just yet. So, but I have done different sessions with different people. A journey to the soul. I did power of inspiration. I put together events, but a lot of them include other people that inspire as well, and other people that I've come into journey with for a time, and they give some great healing to people that have attended the sessions. So, I hope to get back to doing some of the workshops, and I'm not sure yet. See, numerology is one where it has to be in person. It's kind of that one that is. I don't know if it would go over well virtually, because it's the energy of the room, the vibration of the room, because all the numbers are all vibrations, and it's in the healing part of it is all of the people laughing and being together and just shouting things out, and I'm telling my stories and they're telling their stories, and that's the healing part of it. So I haven't tried it virtually, and because I don't know if it would still have that energy about it. So I hope to get back to doing that when we're through, and we can
Yeah.
again do what we do. And but I just wanted to quickly show. This is my book. The
Yes. Yes. The false
Yes.
healer.
And that picture here, even though it's a stock photo, it's pretty darn close to the cabin where the healing sessions took place.
Wow.
So I searched high and low for a photo that I could use.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't have a photo of the place, so I searched high and low for that photo, and did find one on Shutterstock, and they were able to manipulate it a little bit, that it looked a little bit more like.
Yeah. And is the false healer, is that a single story, but or is it a trilogy that when they buy the book they get the three stories inside?
No, it's a single story. The
Single-
false healer is one story, and I when I wrote the false healer, I felt, because I mentioned Heaven's Weight so much in the book, and because Trial was based on Heaven's Weight, my first book, I I felt it really needed to be included with like an attachment. But then
Yes.
I thought, well, if I'm going to attach that, then I may as well do my Out from Beneath Your Wings, because they all tie together. It's all about it's healing when I could. The first book was telling the story of when I met the healer and my childhood. The second book, I told what I could at that time, what I felt I could reveal. The second book, Out from Beneath Your Wings, is the why of how I could fall for the healer, because I had lunch with one of my sister's friends. She's a social worker, and she said to me, "Paula, you're so smart. How could you have fallen for this?" And I said, "You don't really know my life. They thought they knew me, but they didn't know all the experiences I had in Toronto."
Right.
And some of the crazy things that happened that created shame, deep shame. And so I was vulnerable because of that deep shame and guilt.
Yeah.
to somebody who said they could get rid of that for me.
Right.
So
Very
in Out from
attractive.
Beneath Your Wings, I was able to reveal then the false healer is the final part where I was able to reveal and strong enough to reveal the sexual assault. So that's why they're all together, is because they are the story of me and my healing journey, but as it's centered around a false healer.
Yeah. Wow. It's powerful. And like you said, the totality of that experience, activated in you what we call wholeness medicine, right? What you call
Yes.
wholeness medicine. And
Yes.
and in a way, there is that healing energy in there. You embody that medicine. And like you said, from light from creator, it took 4 years for you to embrace that, right? And
Yes.
fully become it and claim it as you.
Yes.
There is this, there's still a journey of embodying the deeper and deeper layers that we are. And your medicine heals. Your books are designed to heal and reflect to others their light in the storms of their life, and to reimagine suffering,
Yes.
which is a soul skill of like exponential proportions right now on our planet. And we are learning how to alchemize that into creating positive change, right? That there's nothing in our life that we could say that we carry shame about now, that doesn't ultimately have an incredible gift for humanity when we learn how to transform it, right?
Yes. Yes. You're exactly
Yeah.
right.
It's so beautiful. I feel like we have to have more conversations, but this has been a beautiful time together. And I really hope our listeners can take in the frequencies that we're sharing as well as the words, because the frequencies are even the more important map, or the soul scroll that we're offering is that energy of belief, that
Yes.
energy of magic, that energy of goodness, even despite the darkness and because of the darkness, it's the reason we have this exponential goodness in our lives, and that we can be recognizers of that we're reflecting that to anyone listening to this conversation. And that's what I think one of the most powerful medicines we can give to humanity is that rising and emerging out of the integration of the darkness that we've experienced back into the wholeness of the light. And I think that embodies what whole soul mastery is. That's what these podcasts are about. And
Mhm.
that's also what the message Color the Magic is about. It is, yes, there's darkness and there's exponential light, and the darkness is part of that light inside you. So, let us all not forget that we are all of it. We're
Yes.
all of it. And so,
We make a home for the all of it with wholeness medicine.
right, which is wholeness medicine. Exactly. We make that home, which is so incredible. And I just want to point out that I think people can find you on your website at
Lightfromcreator.com.
.com.
Yes.
And so I thank everyone for joining us today. And you can see more of these videos at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube and at Color the Magic. I'm now posting that at my Color the Magic channel on YouTube. And you can also check out other offerings and inspirations at Whole Soul Mastery. I'm still building that and growing that, right? One creation at a time.
Yeah.
But I thank everybody for joining us. And I thank you, Paula, for joining me today. This is a very beautiful, beautiful experience. So thank you.
You're welcome, Marie, and thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, until next time, blessings. Namaste.